Good afternoon. My name is Jeff Stauffer, Community Relations Director with Elville and Associates, and welcome to our webinar today, the first in the Elville Webinar Series new wellness series titled Wellness During Uncertainty. So how this will work today, if you're new to our webinars, if you are, welcome, we're glad you're here. You as the attendee are in listen-only mode. However, if you have questions, and we want to encourage you to ask questions as they certainly help others learn, please note them in the questions panel on the right-hand portion of your screen, and we'll pause to address them. You did receive the presentation by email from me yesterday for your convenience to take notes on it if you wish. If for some reason you did not receive the presentation, it is currently located in the handouts section in the panel on the right-hand portion of your screen for you to download at this time. Also, everyone will also receive a post-webinar feedback email right after the presentation, and we ask that you please take just a couple of minutes to fill out this simple survey to offer us your thoughts about the presentation. Elville and Associates works every day with families with clients with the ideals of client education, collaboration, and compassion in mind. And you should expect nothing less from us anytime that you partner with us. And we're always available for free consultations to discuss your family's planning needs, and look forward to being a resource to you in any way now and in the future. So it is my pleasure at this time to welcome back to our webinars Ms. Ellen Platt of the Option Group and Dr. Michelle Fritsch of Retirement Wellness Solutions, who will share a bit about themselves and get started with the presentation. So they've been with us a number of times in the past, and so excited to start up our wellness series with them here today. So Ellen and Michelle, I will turn it over to you, and thanks for being here today.
Great. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you. Great. Well, I'm Ellen Platt. I'm a geriatric care manager, practice based in Hunt Valley, Maryland, but we provide services in Maryland, Delaware, and southeastern quadrant of Pennsylvania. We do case management and advocacy, and we help families navigate longevity, whatever that looks like for them. And we are always concerned with wellness of the clients that we serve as well as the families. So we're going to be talking about some of that today.
And I'm Michelle Fritsch, also with about 30 years of experience. Most of mine was in health systems, so like clinics and hospitals, and also academia. So I've been a professor most of my life. And what I found was a number of people went to retirement without a plan for their health and who they're going to be. So what I do now is have a process that helps create a clear, rock-solid plan for the long-term health, the function, and the fulfillment that can be yours in retirement. And we're so glad to be here today. I'm going to give it back to you, Ellen.
Okay. So what we're going to be talking about today is wellness during uncertainty. We all have been experiencing that over the last 18 to 24 months. And there's a lot of repercussions from that and reverberations that we're seeing. So we're going to talk about some of that, how to take care of yourself and things to expect. And we'd like to just share some of our insights with you, and we open it up to questions throughout the conversation and later at the end. So we've all seen it, in addition to all the things that we were doing before, working, raising our children, just the regular keeping up with the house and doing some leisure activities and having extended family and friends and sometimes taking care of older folks. We found that during this pandemic, we now also have people who are taking care of schooling their kids at home or having some kind of hybrid version of that. People have lost jobs, so there are a lot of financial concerns. Serious health conditions, COVID related and not COVID related. So there's lots of uncertainty that we've been seeing, and a lot of stress and anxiety, and it's over the long term that chronic health condition really can get to people. And what we want to do is talk about some strategies and self-care. So we've also seen the problems with supply chain interruptions. We've seen parents who are aging, and do we put them in a facility or do we keep them home because we might not be able to see them? And it seems like we're all losing control when you hear this, mixed messages, and there's political unrest, and, trying to explain these things to our kids when sometimes it's hard for us to explain it or understand it really well as adults. So there's just a lot of uncertainty, a lot of vulnerability, and over time, that chronic condition can create other problems.
Absolutely. A lot of people have described this sense of disorientation, just it can't quite put a finger on what's going on, or like Ellen said, that complete lack of control. So we would love for this to be interactive. So if you would please go to the chat and tell us, what do you think have been the 3 biggest unmet needs during this pandemic time, the last year and a half or so? Please help us out and put a little bit of information in there. Even if you'd like to add what attracted you to this topic today, so that we can make sure that we emphasize the things that are most important to you as we go through today's presentation. You have to remember I'm a professor, so I don't take no for an answer when it comes to interaction. Nobody?
So Michelle,
Yes.
Michelle, I'm not sure if you can see this. We have not able to travel to see family or vacation as one response.
It's a good one.
Another, not able to travel to see family or vacation. Yes, that's one response. Everybody, you could also note that information in the question panel if you want to note it there as well.
Ellen mentioned something. I know so many families have been disrupted by having loved ones in facilities and then having those extended periods that they couldn't visit. That was difficult for everyone.
Another response is anger at the lack of appreciation for science. Uncertainty about others' vaccination status. Uncertainty about being able to interact with family and friends.
Those are good. Those are very good. Thank you all for sending those in. So 3 unmet needs that we found as we were kind of pulling this together. One is finding time for yourself, because it can feel like you're being pulled in so many directions. And then coping with the emotions of all of this. Something that we'll talk about a little bit later is that, you know, this has been such an emotional turmoil. You can feel like you're on a roller coaster or out on the high seas, and it's just sort of up and down. So we'll be talking today about things that might anchor you a little bit so that you're not feeling like you're tossed around so much. And then just balance, whatever balance is. You know, we've talked about it for years, how hard it is to balance work and family and all of the things that pull us in life. But my goodness, this has complicated it significantly. So just a survey, and this is a few months ago. I'm anxious to see this sort of data as it gets updated. But within the first 12 weeks, most people were zoomed out. They're like, oh, I'm done with all of this online meeting, and that's understandable. 68% felt that fatigue, they're just it's so much to process, and it can be exhausting. 92% of workers or people in the workplace felt burnt out. 71% gained weight. I know I fall in that category. 41% said their self-esteem or their sense of self and who they are dropped. And 41% of people were reporting anxiety and depression, which was a much, much higher number than what it was in the January of the year pre-pandemic. So measurable differences. So if you feel like this is really impacting you, it absolutely is, and you're definitely not alone. People 18 to 24, comparing the years, that especially had increased reports of anxiety and depression. Just really some frightening statistics about raises in suicidal thoughts. And I would say for all ages, we've seen massive increase in substance misuse. So use of substances to try to dull the thinking or the senses or kind of get through this. And then for essential workers, a lot of mental health, a lot of strain, anxiety and depression, trying to take care of your family while you're being out and being exposed to the virus. And the same thing, the substance abuse, decreased sleep or difficulty sleep, and thoughts of suicide. So are there any, I encourage you at any point we're talking about these things to come in and give us your thoughts. Go ahead and take the next one, Ellen.
Okay, great. Some of the trends that we've seen during COVID, obviously, there have been some statistically significant increases in domestic violence and abuse, especially at the beginning where we had people who maybe were out and about working but had domestic violence in their home. Now they're not out in the world, and it was really another hidden pandemic where there was an increase. People were around each other all the time. The anxiety was up, and agitation and things like that. So we saw an increase in domestic violence and abuse. And that's not only just, husbands and wives, but that was also children and seniors, or people who are vulnerable and being cared for by others. We saw a big increase in alcohol consumption, which is still continuing statistically. We're seeing that. And we saw people who maybe had a history of alcohol or substance abuse, but now they've had a relapse because they've used it, just trying to self-medicate and take care of stressors. The depression rates have increased, and that usually is related to loss. And think about it. We lost our jobs, some people. We lost our regular schedule and our routine. We're losing sleep. Feel like we're losing control of not only our own world, but the greater world around us, our support systems, our routines, our jobs, our faith communities, our support systems, not able to be around, people that we normally thought of as our support system. So we're seeing a lot of loss and grief, people who didn't have their vacations who wanted it, people who aren't able to see their loved one. We had lots of people who weren't able to be with their loved one in their final hours because facilities were not allowing family members in. So there's been a lot of loss for everybody in some form or fashion. And so we're trying to figure out how do we move forward from that, and how do we have a mindset that maybe we can look at it in a more positive way and try to control the things that we can control. But we did see stress and anxiety increased. Obviously death from COVID and losing loved ones, or just maybe some more people in your circles or your neighborhood, or people that you knew, even though they may not have been related to you. You're seeing it on the news, you're seeing it in your communities, and you're hearing all about it. There are a lot of people that were isolated, not able to be around their support system, but we had a lot of seniors in the world that I work in. There were a lot of seniors that were in their homes or in a facility and really isolated from their families or even other people. They weren't going out to church. They weren't going to the grocery store. They were staying home. And unfortunately, in that population, we saw a huge decline cognitively, especially for those that were on the early stages of cognitive decline. They weren't maintaining it by their social interaction and their engagement, and they lost a lot of their faculties along the way. And unfortunately, that isolation really, really created problems with the elderly population. And again, in all age groups, we saw suicide rates increase.
I have such a hard time with that one. So as the doors have opened, not surprising, just to kind of reiterate, we've seen weight gain, we've seen sort of the effects of stress on all of us. We have found that alcoholism and addiction rates have only increased. If you remember, before the pandemic, we were talking about opioid overdoses and opioid misuse, that has only gotten worse. And then all the different ways that just people with short fuses have not treated each other kindly. So our world shifted and changed a lot. Our doors have been semi-open now for a while, but I think we're still getting our arms around the bigger ramifications of all of this. Go ahead, Ellen.
You want me to go? So in terms of the physiological aspects, this is what we're seeing. There's been a lot of studies on this, and they continue as we go. But altered general health in the population. A lot of people have had to seek care for the first time for new diagnoses. For a while, a lot of people actually delayed their care or delayed their follow-up with physicians because they were afraid to go out. Or that was telehealth and they didn't want to physically go to a doctor's office. So we saw altered general health in the population. We also saw altered immune function, increased blood pressure because of stress and anxiety, and again, first time diagnoses of something new. And then we saw sleep deprivation, which affects the cortisol hormone. And that also affects our ability to cope and our ability to handle situations and problems that are coming our way, and decreases our ability to problem solve.
I've tried to draw a picture about this, so bear with me. Tell me if this is helpful for you, as I found it was for me, to try to just wrap my arms around this. So we're living in a time with increased amounts of stress and fear. And when that happens, see if I make it go. Oh no, go, there we go. When that happens, we tend to have stress-related eating and drinking, and then poor coping strategies. Even if we had great coping strategies before, it kind of wears on you. And so a number of people have talked about how they're finding it harder to cope with things, harder to be sort of feeling like you're ready for the next thing and have that can-do attitude, we can handle it. I feel like that's been depleted a little bit. Anger, just short fuses. I'm finding that what it takes, let's say somebody cuts you off in traffic and maybe used to, it would have annoyed you, but not a big deal, and now you're ready to yell and scream. Just our ability to handle things, our anger fuses are so much shorter. And then sleep is all sorts of disrupted. For some people, they're sleeping more, almost like an avoidance strategy. And for some people, they're finding it difficult to sleep at all. And we're going to spend some time today talking about that. But when these things happen, when these sorts of things come together, what we find is that our blood pressure tends to go up. And for a little while, once in a while, blood pressure going up might not make such a big difference. But over time, our heart is a muscle like any other muscle. And so when it's overworking for a long period of time, that can cause all sorts of risks for heart disease. We've been talking about weight going up. For many people, the weight has gone up, and that tends to drive your blood sugar up, which impacts diabetes. And when we've got high blood pressure and diabetes coming together, again, that can lead to a number of negative outcomes with our overall health, with our heart, with our lungs, with our brain, with our eyes. All of our organs really need for our blood pressure to stay down and our blood sugar to stay down. And then the other piece that I've heard so many people talk about is chronic pain. If they had pain before, it just feels so much worse. And maybe they didn't really have any noticeable pain before, and now they feel like they do. And when you've got all of this going on, especially the chronic pain, then that tends to start the cycle all over again. So our stress and our fear and our inability to cope with all of that just gets worse. So this is my picture. Let me know if you find it helpful or if it kind of helped kind of explain the bigger impact you're feeling from all of this. The other one is stress, and we've kind of covered this. But what were your what were your strategies to manage conflict and to manage stressful events before? And then how have you found those change during all that we have been through? There's the pandemic, the social unrest, the job uncertainty, the financial changes, the political agenda changes, just so much stuff. So this is going to end the depressing part of our presentation, and let's see if we can't turn a corner.
Yeah. Well, just kind of the tail end of the depressing part are the many health problems caused or exacerbated by stress. So go back to that infographic that Michelle put on the screen, and those things will then lead to these other things. So pain, heart disease, digestive problems, sleep problems, depression, obesity, autoimmune diseases, and other skin conditions. So again, they kind of snowball, and unless we try to break the cycle and be mindful about our health and our lifestyle choices to improve the situation, we need to do that to improve.
Alan and Michelle
Yes.
had a couple other brief comments. One of them was not being able to join friends for social and entertainment opportunities. So that kind of reverberates back to the isolation piece of this. And also, I thought a really good point that our friend Joe Sperling, who attends many of our webinars from Joe Sperling Insurance, he mentioned caregiver burnout. And, you know, not only just taking care of ourselves and our, you know, immediate family, but I guess if you're taking care of another loved one, you know, that is obviously a big aspect of your life. And, you know, to put that on top of everything else, that can certainly, you know, add to, you know, and be a big stressor.
Yeah, and we've even had, some people may have heard about what the sandwich generation is. So that's somebody who's caring for children at the same time they're caring for their aging parents. But with the lifespans being much longer than they used to be, now we have the double-decker sandwich. So it's somebody who's caring for children, possibly grandchildren, as well as their aging adults or their grandparents. So there's sometimes 4 generations in there of people caring for, and there also tend to be the people who are at the age of working full time, being the breadwinner, carrying the benefits, and so there's a lot of stress. It's an environment or a dynamic that really puts a lot of responsibility on people in those middle generations, and it can be quite stressful.
Absolutely. So Ellen mentioned breaking the cycle. And you know what? This is what I find for a lot of people is the cycle that's at the core of what they're experiencing that can be broken. It can feel kind of like you're trapped on this merry-go-round, but there is a way to break this cycle. And so as I'm describing this, I'd love for you to share what other sorts of signs of stress are you experiencing? So that aren't covered by this 3-pronged circle. So let us know what signs of stress you're struggling with or that you have experienced. But I find that all of this stuff can lead to increased anxiety. And the more anxious we are, the worse pain feels. So when you're in an absolutely great place in your life, think about that pain scale that's kind of 0 to 10, from no pain to the worst pain you could ever imagine. When you're in a great place in life and everything just feels like it's going as it should, a pain that you might rate as a 2, if you're in a time when you're feeling a lot of anxiety, you might rate that same exact pain as a 7 because it just feels so much worse. And when we're anxious and in pain, it tends to really disrupt our sleep cycles. I mean, how many people have woken up in the middle of the night with just thoughts or worries or to-do lists just going crazy in their head? Or if you're in pain, you just can't get comfortable for long-term sleep. But then when we don't sleep well, we do not handle stress and anxiety very well. So then that amplifies, and then the pain goes up, and then the sleep gets worse. And that's where this becomes a vicious, vicious cycle. The excellent news is it can be broken. Then there are a number of different strategies to help you get off of that particular cycle, and that's what we'll be talking about. Did anyone come up with any other signs of stress that they've been experiencing?
So we have a couple, difficulty concentrating,
Yes.
being hyper emotional, frustration. Had a couple people say that. And we do have a question here actually as well. Can I pose that to you as well here?
Sure.
It says, as we prepare for the fall season starting tomorrow and the change in weather and the actual time change in a few weeks, what can we do to combat seasonal affective disorder with a lack of social connection and engagement leading to isolation in the home?
That is a brilliant, brilliant question. And we're going to, I think, tackle that here, and I'm counting, in 4 slides. But if we don't, if what we talk about doesn't address that, please call us back to it. Ellen did some research about other kinds of stress that people have been experiencing.
Yeah, and these are probably kind of go in with the things that you just mentioned, Jeff, from the audience. We see, you know, immune function is decreased, so people are getting colds and other things like that. Again, the social withdrawal, frustration, anger, just shutting down, maybe zoning out in front of the TV or on social media and not engaging with people who might be in the home or with friends. Changes in your sleep patterns, overeating, undereating. There's just a lot of things that people experience, and everybody responds in a different way. And I'm sure that a lot of folks here have experienced some of these, have family members or even work associates that they kind of see some red flags. So always think about, at the end, we're going to be having some resources that you can call, but always think about these things when you're dealing with people, either in your work or your social life, and help people, you know, give them some of the resources that we're going to be giving you at the end so that they can find the support that they need. There are a lot of new support systems in terms of online telehealth, counseling, support groups and things like that we didn't have before. So that's kind of a silver lining from the pandemic. I know a lot of people are saying, yeah, gosh, we can go outside now and meet people, but what about when it's colder? And so sometimes we creatively, for instance, for my holiday party this year for my staff, we're in 3 different states and we're not going to be gathering, I suspect, at that time of the year. And so we're doing an online office Olympics, and there's online escape rooms and things like that. So maybe thinking creatively, there's a lot of new ways to online make connections with people. And then we have people who are having campfires and meeting outdoors, even when it's extremely cold. So it's just trying to think creatively in different ways, you know, on a nice day, make plans to get out while it's nice. Getting, you know, moving, exercise, getting involved in an activity, learning a new activity, some way of just stimulating moments of joy and novel situations to kind of exercise your brain as well as your body.
Definitely.
Some of the unhealthy coping strategies we talked about was just withdrawing from people and just not having the energy or interest in things that you used to really enjoy. So it's trying to get ourselves back out there again, socializing when we can, whether it's virtually or in person, preferably in person. We are social beings as human beings, and we like to be around people. So whenever we can seize the opportunity, we'd like to do that. Tend to procrastinate again. If we're depressed, we just don't want to get out of bed, or we don't feel like getting off the sofa. or it takes a lot of emotional energy to create the opportunity to do that. But getting a good support group or some friends who are like-minded that also would like to have some ways to stay connected. And some people are going to the other extreme. They are coming up with so many opportunities they're just filling up every minute of the day, whether it's keeping busy or social media or watching TV or binge watching. So there also is that piece of just purposefully disconnecting from electronics and give our brains time to relax and quiet time, and maybe coming up with some routines to kind of calm in the evening. Some predictable routines, a warm cup of decaf tea, or maybe meditation or some gentle stretching. It doesn't have to be crazy physical or difficult, but just softer lighting, maybe some relaxing music and things like that.
That's a good point, and that leads to our slide where we've just got a lot to talk about here, but I want to start with the sleep part. One element of sleep is making sure that your body knows that daytime is daytime and nighttime is nighttime. And so if we tend to just sit around and binge watch Netflix all day, it's not telling, it's not giving that message that we're definitely awake and alert and moving. So as you can see here, moving and stretching and those sorts of things during the day, one, they make you more tired, but two, it really helps your brain differentiate that day from night. And then Ellen mentioned unplugging. That's probably one of the best. I know so many people who their habit was to watch the nightly news before going to bed, but that is keeping a lot of people awake now. That's a lot to process right before you're trying to go to sleep. So maybe watch the 5 p.m. news and give yourself a break for at least 2 hours before you try to quiet down and go to bed. There are a number of scents like lavender and such that for some people find extra relaxing, maybe a warm shower or warm bath. But giving yourself opportunities. And then the other one, and Ellen, you're the queen of this. How might people try to just really truly quiet their mind to allow them to sleep?
Yeah, a lot of ways that we can do that is doing deep breathing exercises. Just taking time to kind of breathe and fill the lungs fully and the abdomen as well, holding the breath for a little bit and then letting it out. And so some people do box breathing, is when you breathe for the count of 4 or 5, hold it for the count of 4 or 5, exhale for the count of 4 or 5, and then stay at the bottom without breathing for 4 or 5. So doing that box breathing is what we call it, and just taking your time, trying to rid your mind of all the stuff that's running through it. I call it the gerbil wheel, that gerbil that just keeps on going, and in your mind, it doesn't give you a moment to unplug. So maybe it's, visualizing something or looking at pictures, listening to relaxing music. I don't know if people have heard of the Mozart effect, or where you have Baroque music. They've done all kinds of studies of how it engages both sides of the brain, but also gives this state of relaxation. And so just having it quietly in the background as you're doing an activity, or maybe journaling or jotting down information. Free flow drawing is another way to do it. Revisiting the art of writing a card or a note to somebody, and pick somebody who might be isolated themselves. Some people have brought back the old pen pal. Ways to stay connected again. Maybe reading something that's interesting, something that's uplifting or motivational. And again, that news right before bed is going to carry into your dreams. So maybe something more uplifting. Just thinking of ways to do it like that. Coming up with new hobbies, trying new things. A lot of people have learned languages. The community college has virtual classes now. People are diving into those. There's adult lifelong learning centers that has, short-term classes of interest. A really big one is getting outdoors, getting the sun when the sun is here. And again, that helps, like Michelle said, to differentiate your days from your night. getting outside, getting some fresh air, getting that vitamin D from the sun for a little bit. Earthing, taking off your shoes and sticking your feet in the grass. When is the last time anybody has done that? It's probably been a while, but it's just connecting with nature, connecting with the earth, and just spending time outdoors, getting fresh air.
And music can be helpful, like Ellen said, with the Mozart, the Baroque kind of music. Sometimes there are songs that your favorites from the past, and they make you want to dance and they make you smile. Those are wonderful. There's definitely music that can bring you down and even make you angry, so I wouldn't recommend that. And then triggers, especially as we start to near, or we've just had some holidays, we're going to have some more holidays coming soon. What are the things that trigger you, that make you extra anxious or frustrated, or bring back terrible memories? Really strive during these times to be especially careful to avoid those to the degree you can. There was a kind of sad, kind of funny conversation I had with someone recently who talked about when the family all gathers, there are a couple of people that they find difficult. And so we talked about ways to plan ahead where you're there and you're fully engaged with everyone, but you just try to not be the one sitting next to the person, or maybe you're outside with other people out on the porch or whatever. And so you're not being obviously dismissive of that person, but you're also giving yourself a break to not stay with your trigger person any more than you kind of have to. And then support, and we've kind of talked about this, but identify those people that are important in your life. Even if it's high school friends or people you've not connected with in a while, this is a great time to pull people back together and renew friendships, whether that's through writing or phone calls or Zoom calls or whatever. I know both my high school and my college friends, we've had a few group Zooms that we hadn't done in decades. But reconnecting with everyone has just really been an uplifting, fun thing to do. Anything anybody else? Yes.
Michelle, we have one gentleman that says the Howard County Library offers many telecourses through other vendors at no cost as well. So that's another option. And we at Elville and Associates, actually, we know that Howard County Library has been just a wonderful partner of ours here at the firm for the last 7 or 8 years. And so they do offer many great resources for people. And we're privileged to be one of those partners. They sponsor a lot of our, not sponsor, but promote some of our events, and among many others, of course. So.
Yeah, that is fantastic. I know my family's been frequenting the library much more during these last few months. I want to mention apps real fast, things that you can find on your phone or your computer. On the sleep side, there are these noise apps, and they have a color, so like white noise and pink noise and brown noise, but it keeps your mind busy while you're falling asleep, and it's basically sort of a shh kind of sound. But if you're struggling to quiet your mind to sleep, or you wake up in the middle of the night and you can't get back to sleep, play with those, experiment with some of those. And then same with some of the skill building and the relaxation techniques, or even I'm using an app right now to learn Italian because I've got a big wedding anniversary coming up and we want to go to Italy someday when that's possible again. So it's sort of getting us thinking about and planning for that fun trip whenever it will happen by trying to learn Italian along the way.
So one question that we've had come up among a couple of people that have given some comments here, kind of a recurring theme that I see is concern about a constant concern and fear about getting infected, and trying to figure out how to face the possibility of yet more variants, and when will it end? You know, when will we be able to get back to in-person interactions? You that's a recurring theme that I see from people's earlier chats that haven't been mentioned. Can you offer any thoughts about that?
Go ahead,
Go ahead,
Michelle.
Ellen.
One of the things that I could offer is really, one of the most important things that we've done along the way is to watch the CDC guidance and use the science to our advantage. Unfortunately, there is a lot of uncertainty in there. Even the experts are learning as they go because they have to collect data and study it and understand what the numbers mean. So we try to use our best guess based on that information, and we've been doing that with masking and distance and washing our hands and trying to protect people who may be more vulnerable and trying to get vaccinations. So we've tried to do what we can, and everybody's in a different place and making different decisions. You got to do what's right for you. But if the anxiety of that gets to the point where it's really not manageable or it's preventing you from focusing or being able to function, I would suggest seeking guidance from a counselor who could help you with that anxiety. Unfortunately, there's some of that we just can't control. So what we need to do is focus our energy on controlling what we can, which is washing our hands, wearing masks, staying separate from people or seeing them at a distance. Just trying to be safe in the decisions that we make and controlling things that we can.
If you're interested, based on questions exactly like that, I do a weekly, like a 10-minute update of the science that's come out that week. And so we can get that link to you if you're interested in that. And that's based on people asking those exact questions, is how do I even keep track of all the things that are changing and moving, and how do I know what's real science and what's not? So that's the purpose of that particular resource if you're interested.
Michelle, if you could send that to me, I can include that in my post-webinar email I send out to all those registered for the presentations. Thank you.
Okay, I will. Thank you. Ellen, anything else on this slide that you wanted to mention?
I don't think so. I think we covered them pretty well.
Yeah, and I hope you'll find this helpful, like really, really tangible things that you can apply.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about some of the things that you can control. Again, not everything you can, but some of the things that you can control is simplifying your to-do list. It's okay to say no. It's okay to say, I'll get some of that done tomorrow. Or it's okay to say, you know what, this is no longer important. And even though maybe I signed up for it before, maybe this is the time for me to step out. A lot of people did that during this pandemic when they were on boards and on committees and super active and doing things that they were no longer getting excitement or joy out of, or had other volunteer areas that they wanted to get into. So this is a good time to kind of shift your priorities or reevaluate, re-examine the things that you're doing and how you want to spend your time. And then time blocking or setting a schedule. Devoting a certain amount of time to focusing on something that you want to do, and then taking a break from it too is important, instead of cramming and doing that constantly. We need breaks, we need variation. So we're able to do that to an extent, is creating times where we can, if we're working at home and we just need to stretch, take 5 or 10 minutes, walk outside, get a drink, walk around the block, whatever it is, and just, it takes 10 minutes to do that, but it really can improve your mindset. Again, making time to evaluate what's important, setting realistic expectations. We talked about avoiding those hot button topics or people, and again, focusing on what you can control and try to take the focus off what you can't control.
Can I say something fun, what I think is funny real fast?
Yeah.
I love bright colors, and so my family has bared with this, but we moved during the pandemic, and so I got some orange chairs and yellow curtains and lots of really bright flowers, And so I'm controlling my environment in the gaudiest but happiest of ways. And then when this is done, I'll go back to something that is more appropriate.
Yep, and that, to your point, everybody reacts differently. So everybody has something different that makes them smile in a small way. So it may work for you, it may not work for somebody else, but do what feels good for you. We want to be kinder to ourselves, more non-judgmental. We got to be problem solvers. We're dealing with stuff that is unprecedented and we've never had to deal with it before. So we're trying to figure out ways, maybe try something. If it doesn't work, try something different or come back to it later and see if it works at another time. We've got to be flexible, creative. We've got to be positive and optimistic. Use humor. Humor is really important right now, and just being mindful. Carving out that time to kind of take care of yourself, because if you can't take care of yourself or you don't feel taken care of, it's hard to be that caregiver for those others that may need you. So just try to be creative and mindful and optimistic. It's really important to clarify our emotions. Think about, if you fly off the handle at a loved one, stepping back and saying, why did I react so strongly to that? And really understanding where your emotions are coming from and having conversations that are not emotionally charged. So what we talk about often is thinking from the top of the brain instead of our reptilian brain in the back, where we tend to fly off the handle and be very, very volatile and very emotion filled. It's really kind of taking a breath, stepping back, trying to understand where that came from and why. And it's really important not to make assumptions. Just because somebody may have reacted that way to you, it may be that they're having a really bad day and it really maybe had nothing to do with you. So be intentional, share, inquire, ask, see if you can help some way, or ask for help yourself if you feel like you need it.
You know what, you mentioned something really great. When you think about how our brain works, I call it the little walnut. There's just this little thing about the size of a walnut down deep in our brain that kind of drives our fight or flight response. And when that is triggered, and keep in mind, back in the day, that would have only been triggered when you were out for a walk through the prairie land and a bear came after you. But otherwise, life wasn't all that difficult sometimes. And so it wasn't triggered very often. But the way we're living right now, it can be triggered and firing all the time. And when it does, it shuts down the other parts of our brain so that all focus can be on getting away from the bear. But in this case, the bear is just this constant stuff that we're dealing with. If we can shut down the walnut, if we can shut that down, it's this big, much bigger part of our brain that's toward the front. That is the part that allows for the humor and the creativity and the focus and the concentration and the problem solving. If we don't take some control of that, the little walnut, the amygdala, is just going to fire the fight or flight response all day long. And so using the strategies we've talked about, I encourage you to think about which ones might work for you to shut that down, quiet that down, because it's the only way you're going to be able to have those creative and thoughtful thoughts. You can get them back. People talk about, oh, my creativity is gone. It's not gone. It just got shut down because you're letting the stress response drive your brain. And you got to make that stop so you can get your creativity back. So a lot of that ties into being intentional about the sleep. And Jeff, when I send you that link, I'll also send you a sheet that has a lot of great tips about how to help yourself sleep better. As a pharmacist, I do not recommend any chemical, no medication. There are detrimental effects from every single sleep medicine that's out there, and I'd love to talk to you about that in more detail. But I want you to find ways to sleep that do not involve medications. Think about your food, especially your stress food, your caffeine and your alcohol. Try to have other options at the ready where you can grab those for a healthier response. Exercise, keep your body moving. Netflix just brought out a whole bunch of new stuff, but try to avoid that. And keep your body moving. Find that balance in your activities. Ellen talked about shorter to-do lists. Give yourself a break right now because everybody's stressed out. Think about your goals and focus on those things. Tiny example is trying to learn Italian because someday our goal is to get to Italy. And then make that fun. Make it part of your overall planning. And then surround yourself with those support people, whether it's friends from the past or current friends or friends that you have yet to make that you would really like to be part of what they're doing.
Yep, so setting a time to practice these things daily. There are a lot of apps that you can put on your phone. There are a lot of self-help videos and things on YouTube. Just finding what works for you. Being mindful instead of just vegging out is really just, you know, setting small goals even and coming up with things that maybe reach another goal that you may have that's more longer term. Avoid practicing when you're tired. When you're tired and you probably need sleep. So it's important to make sure that you are carving out time for your sleep. Expect ups and downs, get back on track, maybe find an accountability partner, somebody that you trust or you care about that maybe you could meet and take a walk outdoors once a week and just check in with each other. I had a meeting this morning with my staff and we start off every meeting with a one-word check-in. And that gives us the litmus test of what's going on with everybody on our team during the day. And so that's a great way for us to hear the highs and lows for people that are in our circles and that we care about. But it's surrounding yourself with that supportive network, whether it's a faith community, they're having online services, whether it is a support group, whether it's an affinity group, lots of groups on YouTube or Facebook where you can find people with similar interests. And I encourage you to try to learn something new.
Yeah.
So here are some resources, and you'll get them from Jeff if you haven't gotten them already. But they are local resources for many different issues that may come up, whether it's mental health, adults or children, a crisis hotline, substance abuse, domestic abuse, free counseling. There's lots of things you can reach out for. So I'll leave these numbers with you. Please reach out if you have questions for me or Michelle. Our information is contained in the presentation, and we'd be happy to chat with you.
And as you are sending us your questions, please do. We would love to have more Q&A. And if the questions you've asked along the way, if we've not thoroughly answered those or you want to talk about them more, please include that in the Q&A. But we're very thrilled to announce that during COVID, I call these the COVID blessings, we've seen an opportunity to take retirement wellness strategies and the option group and the tools that we have and the resources and the information we have, and we're putting those together in something we're calling Propel Comprehensive Wellness. And Propel is powerful retirement options for a purpose-filled, engaged life. And so that will be released, we're hoping, here at the end of the year, but you're the first to hear about it. So we'll keep you posted as this continues to be developed. It's something we're calling it do it yourself. And so it's something you could get access to these resources, one module or one little bit at a time, and over time build your library of just a vast number of resources, but try to make it in bite-sized nuggets so that it's not quite so overwhelming. So do we have questions?
Well, thank you, Ellen and Michelle. And now, everybody, would be your time to get your final thoughts and questions into Ellen and Michelle. Wonderful resources and a great presentation today. So please go ahead and share your thoughts and questions at this time. And while you're getting those thoughts and questions in. I want to thank Ellen and Michelle for being here. We are going to be offering what I'm calling our wellness series here with the Elville Webinar Series, the third Tuesday of every month for the next several months at 1:30, and this is the first of what I'm really looking forward to as being one of the highlights of our webinar series here at Elville and Associates on a monthly basis. So again, Michelle and Ellen, thank you so much for a great presentation that I am hoping will be very helpful to a lot of people in the communities that we serve and our clients and people that come to our webinars and general public and our financial advisor community. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you for inviting.
Yeah, it's our pleasure. No brainer on my part. So while we're getting any final thoughts in, I want to share with everybody for the webinar series, we have on Monday at 7 o'clock in the evening, and this might be helpful to some people as a lot of our events are during the day. We're offering estate planning and elder law essentials at 7 p.m. next Monday. That following Wednesday, the 29th, charitable giving and philanthropy, and those are going to be offered by our managing principal and lead attorney, Stephen Elville. And we also have a number of other ones, but I did want to highlight our next part of our wellness series, which is going to be on October 19th, Navigating Unexpected Changes. And Ellen and Michelle will be back, and we'll be talking about how change is uncomfortable and sometimes disruptive. I'm reading from our website right now. We'll talk about how these changes can impact your daily functioning, and you'll be provided with strategies and supports to navigate the disruptions and prevail. So I'll be sending out some more information to you about that within the next few days. So looking forward to that very much. So let's see here. Doesn't look like we have any further questions here at this point. So I want to thank you again for being here today and being part of our Elville Webinar Series, and we look forward to hosting everybody again soon. Any final thoughts, Michelle and Ellen?
Nope. Thank you again for the opportunity, and thank you everybody for your time.
Okay, all right. We'll see everybody again soon. Thank you very much.